Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Deku born with All for One Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. And also go support the Spirytas for writing that awesome fanfic. Let's start this video. Katsuki's pav. It's gone, where is my quirk? I can't feel it anymore. Shock fills Katsuki's body as he looks at the boy in front of him. His eyes like little beads as he stares. Death glares at the boy who looked at him with amazement in his eyes. His hands turned outwards and small blasts exactly like Katsuki's were there, popping the same amount that his explosions did. He was starting to shake slightly, staring at the boy. Give it back, Deku, he says softly, staring at the green net before him. Izuku's pav a few minutes earlier. I really hope Kaken likes my quirk. Daddy said it was a very special one. Maybe he might stop calling me Deku now. Izuku stood in the doorway to his kindergarten room, clutching the bottom of his large blue shirt as he looked around, gulping softly as he walks in a little bit, looking for the blonde he had called a friend for the couple of months he had been in this kindergarten. His hair was a mess of green curls, and some curls lightly bounced with each soft step the boy took as he looked for Kaken. He still didn't fully know the power of his quirk and would need to study it more, but he at least wanted to show it off. Not expecting a hand to grab him, he let out a small yep and turns to face the random encounter, his hands going up slightly and touching the boy that had grabbed him, his quirk still not under control. He could feel a strange energy rush into him. It was explosive, and he could feel pops in his stomach, like the energy was a raging bomb that was blasting with every heartbeat. He could see a mop of blonde hair before his hand started popping and blasting off mini explosions like Kaken. His eyes opened wide with excitement as he finally registers her it was that touched him. It was Kaken. Looking up at his friend, he smiled, showing off his power. Look, Kaken. I wanted to show you, I have a quirk now. It sort of feels just like yours in a way. He says with a smile, unaware that the blonde in front of him was staring at him with a mix of emotions, fear, loss, and most importantly, unbridled anger. No, that's not your quirk, Deku, it's mine. Give it back, give it back. Give me my quirk back, Deku. He shouts, looking at the boy, his eyes filling with more anger than anything else. The boy in front of the blonde looked at Kaken and could feel fear run up his spine. Even if the boy didn't have his quirk, he knew he could still beat Izuku's butt. He isn't allowed to say the A word. Looking at Kaken, moving to touch the boy's hand softly and giving his quirk back, Katsuki quickly pulling away and glaring at the boy as he backs up. Never touch me again, Deku. I don't want you to ever talk to me again if you're going to end up taking my quirk for yourself. I saw it in your eyes. You wanted to keep it, didn't you? His eyes were beady, his anger raging out as his hands popped and cracked with his quirk. It felt so much better than anything to feel that explosion in his chest, the warm pops of his blasts on his palms. The greenette looks at the boy, tears starting to fill his eyes as he looks at him, sniffing and starting to tear up, one of his arms grabbing his shirt tightly as he started to bawl in front of Katsuki, his mind racing. Did he really do a bad thing? IIW won't do it again, Kaken. I'm sorryy, he says with a sob after speaking, moving to clean his eyes only for tears to keep filling them and falling down. Katsuki not convinced. You stole my quirk, Deku, only villains steal. You're a villain, Deku. He growled, looking at the boy before moving to leave. The two had been ignored since most teachers didn't believe Izuku, even if he claimed to have a quirk, so they didn't bat an eye when he started to cry. After that day things changed. Be it for better or for worse. I have some bad news, kids. Izuku-chan is no longer going to be with us as his father is taking a job overseas and taking his son with him. He said that he will miss us all. The teacher says, a slightly saddened look on her face. No one knew the real reason Izuku left with his father, but Kaken knew. He knew that Izuku was a dangerous and overpowered person. He hated it, but at least he was gone. Daddy, I don't want to be a villain. Why is my quirk so bad? Izuku cries in front of his father, his face cut off by shadow, or well, as much as Izuku's memory can allow him to remember. Don't cry, my son. Your quirk is not bad. It is how you use it that makes it what it is. Don't worry, my boy. I'll help train you to use your quirk. But let's do it somewhere else, okay? He says, his voice deep and demanding attention. His large arms wrapping around Izuku's tiny form, hugging the sniffling boy close. I will make sure you know all about your quirk. He says into his son's ear. Staring past him, sighing as he moved to take Izuku and leave to the States. Years later. Izuku sighed softly as he walked out of the airport, his hand coming up to look at the skyline of Japan. A smile on his lips as he moved to pull his sunglasses off. Glancing to a woman that was waiting near a car with a bright smile on her face. Izuku. She says with a smile, her green hair tied back in a ponytail and her short chubby body rushing to her son. Inko Midoriya had stayed back in Japan when Hisashi had taken Izuku to the States, knowing that it meant it was for Izuku's health. She was so happy to see her son again. He was so much taller now than when he was 4 years old. Now he had to be at least 13 to 14, and since he came home so early there was actually a few weeks of school left before the big entrance exam that Izuku had been telling her about. Izuku smiled down at his mother, kissing her cheek and moving to head for the cab she had been holding for the two. He told her all about America. It was amazing. He made so many friends and even got to go to Island, meeting one of his idols, David Shield. He also happened to get the number of David's daughter Melissa. He didn't mention that part because he knew his mom was a rather intrusive person on his private life, but he had a lot more confidence now that he was back home. Sighing happily as he got out of the car, seeing his old apartment building. Moving to carry his bags up to his room, he smiled and kissed his mother on the cheek another time before heading to take a nap in his room. Ready to go to school next Monday. Sighing as he sat in his room looking around before glancing at his hand, he had learned so much from his father, how to control his quirk and the quirks he was able to gain, how to use them all equally, and knowing the limits of his powers. Remembering what his father said to him before he left for home. Izuku, I need you to promise me and follow this order to the letter. Never under any circumstances let it be known your quirk is called All for One. Understand? You and your mother don't need to go through the hell that name causes. You have a number of abilities that aren't as flashy as something like hardening or laser eyes. Just make up some story about your quirk that could be allowed with main details, but never let anyone know. He says, looking his son in the eyes. His own fear slightly present. He knew the dangers of his own quirk and didn't want his own son to feel those repercussions of it. Remembering those words, Izuku moved to grab his notebook, flipping it open and looking at his current list of quirks he has acquired, though he flipped a few more pages, past quirk combos to the one he planned on using the most. Quirk combo number 4. Kinetic Energy. Super Strength x3. Speed Enhancement x2. Telekinesis. Mild. Telekinesis. Strong. Danger Sense. Sonar Hearing. Master Analysis. Damage Resistance x2. Elemental Resistances. Fire. Cold. High Winds. Looking over the quirks he glanced to the next page. The story or ideal quirk he has that could explain the main hitters of his quirk: Damage Resistance, Super Strength, and Speed. Kinetic Energy Manipulation. It can explain the speed of his body, the strength behind his punches, kicks and jumps, and the amount of damage he can take if he is able to convert kinetic energy back and attack with more force. Sighing as he closed the notebook, he laid down. Looking at the ceiling of his small room. It was going to be a fun Monday when he came back. It was going to be even more fun getting into the school of his dreams. Yue wondering how much has changed since he has gotten back. Izuku sighed as he awoke in his bed, thinking for a moment he was back in America before turning to see a massive poster of All Might on the wall. Looking it over, he sighed softly, moving to get up and stretch as he stood in the middle of his room. His massive curls spilled over his face a little, giving a puff to blow the curls out of his face. He moved to grab a hairband he had in his bag. His hair had grown massively since over in America. He had changed quite a bit. He noticed a picture of him with an All Might mascot on his old desk. Walking over to it, he picked it up and looked at himself. Back then he was a cute little kid with massive curls. Now he stood at least at 5'10", maybe even 6'0". He had yet to measure himself at a physical, and that wasn't the only change. He had a much more confident personality, his body was clearly trained, and he didn't have any fear or sadness in his eyes, which used to be full of those emotions. His body having scars and marks of training and using his quirk, it was hard to get a hold of at first, because he could use quirks which at first weren't his, but now he looked at them like marks of growth and how far his father had trained him. He could remember one of the first lessons his father taught him when they went to America. It consisted of Izuku borrowing a quirk from someone and then training that quirk. Sure, he never actually gave it back, but his father said that the person wouldn't miss it and taking a quirk wasn't as bad as he thought it was. The first quirk he got was a simple power enhancement quirk, able to punch bricks apart and break stacks of wooden planks. His father telling him to train his body more, get used to the quirk and think of it as an attachment of his being. Not something to just will on, but to know that it will happen when he needs it, not when it is needed. Though it was easy to call forth one quirk at a time when he got his second one, it was a little difficult for the boy. It was hard to think of how both quirks would interact, his father telling him that when he was Izuku's age, he could combine 10 quirks just like the snap of his fingers and had the strength of All Might and then some. It made Izuku think about what he could become with a quirk like this. It made the boy very happy, and he could hardly wait to learn more when he was that young. After years of borrowing quirks, he had learned to take a person's quirk while they also kept it. It was hard to explain to his father, but he had the same quirk as someone, even when they still had control of their quirk. Using the ability he was given to make his life and others easier. Sure, he still had to follow quirk regulations even over in America, yet he loved it when he could use his quirk for the greater good. Unaware of his father's possible ulterior motives in training him how to use this power he was given, he, however, didn't care. Becoming the hero he wanted to be. Even when he saved Melissa's shield from an incoming object which had been launched by a malfunctioning machine. He had used Speed Enhancement X2 to get over to the girl just in time to enable shield to block the piece of metal. All of it felt so unreal he hadn't realized he was holding Melissa bridal style and staring at the machine and its creator as if he was her protector and was willing to do anything to save her. He was so flustered after he was like a child who just told a girl he had a crush on her, even though in the end he was given her number, along with a lifetime pass to Island from David Shield, who he did fan out at when he met him, as well as nearly passing out when he learned that Melissa was his daughter, and he had just saved one of the best minds in the world from a possibly deadly interaction. Chuckling to himself as he thought about those years, he shook his head and remembered today was Monday. He had school to get to. He got ready rather quickly, throwing on the uniform that was sent to his home the week before his arrival. Looking at himself in the full-body mirror he had in his closet, smiling as he made sure his hair was tied back before heading out to the kitchen to prepare breakfast for him and his mother. Inko awoke with a small yawn, moving to walk out of her bedroom after glancing at the clock. 5:15, a good time to wake up, get ready for the day and make breakfast for her son. Humming softly as she got dressed, she started for the kitchen, only to stop at the sound of kitchenware moving about and the sound of something cooking. Rushing to see what it was, she was surprised to see Izuku standing already dressed making breakfast like a pro. Her eyes wide with shock as she watched her son cook breakfast for the two of them, watching him slowly move the omelette he made onto a bed of rice. Izuku turning and holding a plate to his mother and another in his own hands. "Here you go, Mom." "Good morning," he says with a smile, moving to take out forks when she took the plate. This was so bizarre to her. She had never known Izuku could cook, let alone something that smelled so amazing. "Thank you, Izuku." She mumbles out, moving to take a bite of the omelette, only to have her eyes sparkle as flavor fills her mouth. Her eyes widen as she stares at the dish, moving to quickly sit down and start digging in. This food. It was amazing. It was honestly better than anything she had ever cooked, and she couldn't help but look to Izuku with eyes that said more, please. The teen chuckling softly as he looked at her. "I'll make you another plate and lunch before I head out," he hums happily. Moving to finish his meal before he got to work on making her a second helping. As well as preparing lunch at the same time. He was so skilled. It looks like confidence wasn't the only thing her son acquired overseas. Izuku smiling as he kissed his mother's cheek before he left for school. Humming as he walked, looking about the area as he walked. It had been so long he forgot what most of the place looked like. He was able to find his way to school, however, rather easily. Thanks to Master Analysis, he can know pretty much anything about his surroundings. It was a very useful skill to have both in and out of combat. It also kept him aware of things around him. Though he mostly relied on a quirk combo he called Instinct, which was a group of about 5 different sensory quirks. The enhanced smell, for a better sense of smell, sonar, to increase his hearing range to tell him if someone is approaching, or if someone is sneaking around, vibration sensation, it helped him feel the vibrations of anything around him in a 500-foot radius. Along with Sixth Sense, allowing him to sense the aura of any person in a 100-foot radius sphere around him, and one he rarely used, Taste. It increased his sense of taste tenfold, yet he rarely used it because he was never really in a point he needed to taste someone. He was waiting to get a better quirk like ragdolls from the Wild Pussycats before he changed it out. Looking at the school, he smiled as he stood there for a moment, girls and boys walking past him whispering as they walked past, all eyes on him. "Hey, who's the new kid?" He could hear a girl say, her friend responding with the same curiosity, "No clue. Maybe a transfer." Izuku turned to the girls and gave a priceless smile that made them jump, but not in a bad way. They blushed brightly as the boy smiled at them and let out shrill shrieks of excitement. Moving to head in, he went to the principal's office to speak with him before being sent to his first period class. Being able to sense the auras of everyone in the room, he stood outside. He could feel his heartbeat like crazy as he thought to himself, "He's in here. Just go in and be yourself. You aren't that same defenseless Deku anymore. You even have a quirk. You should be fine. Just make a good first impression." His thoughts were cut off as the teacher said to enter the room. Taking a deep breath, he opened the door and walked in. His curls bouncing and his chest slightly puffed out as he walked, moving to stand next to the teacher. He gave a deep bow before standing again, clearing his throat as the teacher said to introduce himself. "Ahem, hello," he says in clear English, blushing lightly as he spoke, shaking his head softly before speaking again. "Sorry about that." He spoke in perfect Japanese, showing he knew multiple languages off the bat. His eyes scanned the faces in the room, his eyes locking on one figure. However, it was a blonde who had his head back and feet up on the table, clearly not interested in him, but he knew that was possibly going to change. Clearing his throat again, he spoke. "Hello. My name is Izuku Midoriya," he says, only to get stares for a moment, only a few knowing the boy from his childhood years, but many of them staring with disbelief. Starting to speak again, however, he was cut off by a shout. "Deku?" The Stuki's pav a few minutes before, Itsuki groaned as he sat back in his chair. Letting out a yawn as he waited for class to start, wanting to just sleep through this and ignore it all like he used to. The past 10 years were nothing but a boring haze to the blonde. His mind never really focused on anything other than fucking around, beating up kids who thought they were top shit, and doing what he fucking wanted. No one was going to mess with him, he was a godsend, given that his quirk was so fucking amazing. Everyone knew it, he was the one to reach the top and blast All Might out of the top spot. He was going to claim his destiny like it was calling out to him. He was having another boring day. The teacher was talking about some shit about a transfer student from America. He didn't care, though he did notice as the person walked in and spoke, he sounded familiar, but he didn't know where that voice came from. That was till he heard the name. The room falling silent while Kitsuki slowly raised his head, his eyes shrinking slightly as he looked at the boy in the front of the class. That mass of green curls, those emerald eyes, and that same shit-eating grin. No way, it wasn't him, was it? He just said his name. It had to be him. It had to be that little useless shit. Deku? He shouts, launching himself at the boy who quickly moved to dodge the incoming explosion, going to blast him again before a hand chopped him on the back of his head, craning to see who the fuck would dare hit him, only to see the teacher. Kitsuki. Go sit down before I send you to detention. The teacher says with a small sigh. It was hard to tell his top student that, but he had to, since Izuku himself had a quirk and wasn't a quirkless, which Kitsuki could have done all he wanted to Izuku if he was a quirkless person. Sorry Izuku, please continue, he says, moving to let the boy have the stand. Izuku thanking him and moving back to his spot, a smile still on his face. As I said, I am Izuku Midoriya and I hope we get to know each other because I really would love to make you all my friends. He says, his smile beaming with joy and kindness, the full opposite of the local explosion boy who was always sour and rude. Oh, and my quirk is kinetic energy manipulation. He says with a smile, moving to head for the only empty seat in the class, a few seats behind Kitsuki to the right. He could feel the boy's eyes on him the entire class period and all the way to lunch, but before he could get up to confront the greenette, he was already swarmed by everyone in class, girls asking if he was single, if he had plans for that afternoon, and if they could get his number. All the guys were asking how he was able to dodge Kitsuki's blast or how was he so calm during that entire incident. He happily responded to them all in a couple of words. Well, to make sure I get everyone, no I'm not, I have a prior engagement, I'm so sorry. My number is XXXXXXXX. I have had 10 years of training with people whose quirks are faster and stronger than Bakugu's, and I have a strong will after being in many fights. He says, which only lead to more questions and answers from the boy. Kitsuki wasn't going to get the chance to talk to him, so he might as well wait for the end of school. That way he can talk to that bastard Deku and ask him where the fuck he has been for the past 10 years and what that shit was about his quirk. His quirk wasn't kinetic energy manipulation, was it? He can remember what happened that day, and he can still feel that emptiness. There was something he was hiding, and Kitsuki was gonna get to the fucking bottom of it. At the end of the day, Izuku was one of the first to get up and start his way out, only for a loud shout to stop him in his track to the door. Deku? The greenette turned to face the blonde who was walking towards him. Yes, Kitsuki? He says with a smile, the blonde growing more irritated by the second. You, me, west side of the school. Now. He shouts, moving to shove past the boy, expecting him to follow after him. To his surprise, Deku did follow him. His smile had faded slightly, but it was still there, and his eyes still had that same cheery stare in them. He hated it. Looking at the boy, he could feel that explosion in his heart start to grow bigger. The fuck are you trying to pull? Kitsuki growls, looking to Izuku with anger in his eyes. I'm sorry, Kitsuki. Izuku replied, looking to the boy who he was now an inch taller than. I know for a fact that your quirk isn't kinetic energy manipulation. He shouts with a growl, looking at the boy who just cocked his head to one side. My quirk is kinetic energy manipulation, Kitsuki. You were dreaming back in kindergarten. He states, knowing what the boy was talking about fully well. Liar. I know for a fact you took my quirk that day. It still feels a little weird knowing it was taken from me. What the fuck are you up to? And where have you been, you damn nerd? He says with a loud growl. His teeth baring as he looked at Deku. To the greenette he looked like a dog about to go feral. I went away to America because my dad wanted me to be raised over there. Simple as that, and that is where I mastered my quirk. You can choose not to believe me, Kitsuki, but it is the truth. I'll be seeing you around Kaken. Izuku says before turning and starts to walk away. He could feel his blood run cold. That name no one, but Auntie Inko has used that name, even then he hadn't heard it since he was 5. His eyes going into pinpoint as he stared at the back of Izuku only to launch himself at the boy. You fucking asshole. He shouts out, moving to use his normal right hook to start the fight that was about to begin. Only got the green hair to go down and out of his hit. Izuku quickly moved to fall backwards and plant a kick right into Katsuki's face, moving to roll out of the way and then up. His eyes narrow as he stared at his friend as he moved to get up from falling on the ground. His nose slightly bruised from the kick, but nothing stopped him from turning to Deku and staring at him with so much anger it was visible on his face, as a few veins had actually popped out slightly. "So, you learned how to fight over in America? You should learn your place, Deku." He shouts, moving to run and charge at the boy, only for him to end up on the ground again. He hadn't even seen what happened, but he had an idea. Izuku had ducked under his next explosion-powered punch and quickly moved around him to place a hit to the back of Katsuki's head. His eyes a bit blurry as he moved to get up, already a lot more beaten up, and Izuku barely had a mark on him. His eyes still narrowed, almost like he wasn't even trying. "Ugh, damn it. You'll pay for that." He shouts again, rushing to charge the boy before two of Katsuki's friends jump in the way, stopping the boy from attempting to fight anymore. "Dude, calm down. It's the first day back from spring break. Take it easy," Goon number 1 says, moving to wrap an arm around Katsuki's shoulder. Goon number 2 agreeing. "Yeah man, and Izuku just got back, give him a broken man," he says, moving to wrap his arm around Katsuki's waist, the two taking the explosive blonde away while Izuku stood there watching him leave, sighing softly before a smile grew back on his face. It was going to be a fun few months before the UA entrance exam. Izuku sighed as he exited his apartment, stretching his arms over his head and cracking his back after a nice morning breakfast and workout. Having gotten into his normal routine from his father had got him into to keep his body up in peak shape to handle all the quirks he had. He wondered what quirks he could borrow around Musatafu, not having seen many good ones among his fellow students. Master analysis making it rather easy to tell what quirks people had by details about the person and how they seemed to act. He leaned more toward collecting emitter-type quirks, seeing as most transformation and mutant quirks weren't as useful to him as emitter types were, as well as getting his hands on the master analysis quirk. He was able to collect more powerful and intimidating quirks that would take years of training to master and cut that almost literally in half, and learn how to use complicated skills in only a couple of months or maybe a year's time. Either way, he was still looking for new quirks and new combos that he can make. Heading to school, he decided to take a small detour today, hearing that some villain was causing a problem on the train platform. Heading over, he watched as a giant shark-headed man shouted out, looking over the massive crowd and the gathered heroes that were there. Activating his quirk, Izuku quickly analyzes the scene. Looking over the first 3 heroes, he spotted getting detailed descriptions on them and their quirks, a hum leaving his lips as he looked them all over, along with the villain. First hero, Backdraft. His quirk was Hydrokinesis, a powerful quirk if used to its Ma's potential, but overall nothing useful. Mainly a support or rescue hero, his water not used for fighting, better suited for protection and defense. Padded armor to take hits and blasts from quirks, could easily be taken down with a few fire quirk users, or better yet, someone who can control electricity. Second hero, Death Arms. An older hero, but clearly, he has some strength, his body built up around his quirk, massive upper body strength to match his quirk, which is a simple strength enhancement, nothing too bad, use tactics like an outboxer, get in quick weak hits, and over time he would fall. Though it would be good to collect. Izuku made a mental note to get a handshake with the hero after this incident was over. Humming softly as he turned his eyes up to the villain who was currently tossing around Kamui Woods. Villain, unknown name. Gigantification, useful but not at all practical. Simply increases the user's size tenfold. Can easily be beaten with an ice or wind quirk, along with some form of binding quirk. Not needed. Third hero, Kamui Woods. A practical quirk, able to use his wooden arms in many forms, he can extend them and can have them retract or branch out into different vines or well branches. It would be useful, but it would be too recognizable. People seem to adore his heroic nature and speech. Possible for the collection. He watched as Kamui finished talking and was about to unleash an attack that would most likely constrict the villain and easily capture him, only for a large woman burst into the scene. It was surprising no one made note of her till she came in, kicking the villain in the face. While she defeated the villain, she caused power lines on the railway to break and fall, along with damaging the road from her landing, as well as knocking the villain into the ground. "Don't worry everyone. Mount Lady is here to make your acquaintance," she says, holding up the arm of the possibly unconscious villain, starting to shrink down and wave her arms happily as she gets surrounded by photographers. Izuku watching her with a small annoyed stare. Mount Lady. The narcissist. She is new to the hero scene and is young, so she is bathing in the fame she is getting at the time. She is childish and didn't even take into account the property damage she caused, however, it probably won't be docked from her paycheck. Quirk is the same as the villain's, Gigantification. She can increase the size of her body tenfold. Moving to shake his head, he headed up to Death Arms and held his arm out to the man. "Thanks for your work today. Nice catch by the way. He says with a smile looking at the hero. The man glanced at the boy before giving a half-hearted smile back and shaking his hand as a photographer from the news started looking at the older hero. Yeah, you're welcome kid. He mumbles before feeling slightly weaker. He shook his head only for his power to seem to return immediately. He was probably just tired from this morning's workout. Izuku hummed as he looked at the man, quickly removing his quirk so that he can create a copy of it before returning the original quirk. He called this process copy and paste. Canny I know. He was able to figure out how he could borrow a person's quirk for a moment, create that power in terms of its own quirk, and then return the original right back to the person in the span of a few seconds, though it was longer when he was younger, needing a good 5 hours to actually make the copy before he could even put the original back, and then it was still hard to get everything about the quirk right, and then it was only slightly similar to the real quirk. Though after enough training he was able to get that 5 hours down to a span of a few seconds, and then was able to copy the quirk exactly like it was in the original host. The ability greatly helped him in fueling his heroic nature, as he wasn't stealing anyone's quirk, just mimicking it with his own. Never letting anyone face the life of being called quirkless, his quirk all for one was slightly similar to living a quirkless life, as he needed other people to give him power. He didn't have any of his own, so he didn't want anyone to feel like he did, leaving them with the only thing that gave them their individuality. Taking his notebook out and marking down the collection of another strength quirk, turning the number next to strength enhancement to an 8, before writing down the other 3 quirks he witnessed in 2 other columns in his notebook, having 3 in total. Collection, possibility, disregard. Each one had a number of quirks under each, the collection column having all of the quirks he had, nearly filling up an entire page with different quirk names, many having numbers next to them, and others having a star next to them. The star meant that they were important and very powerful quirks, like air compression and chronostasis. To give a few examples. Ones with numbers meaning that he had multiple versions of that same type of quirk, a lot of people having speed, strength, and overall body improving quirk, be it strength, speed, processing power, sight, smell, etc. Closing his notebook before anyone can read it, he headed for class after checking his phone for the time. It was still going to be a few minutes to class so he didn't need to rush. Walking into class he quickly bent backward as Kaken fired at him, the boy hitting the other wall with a groan, moving to quickly launch again at Izuku. The blonde wanting to prove that Deku wasn't as strong as he was saying, but clearly, he wasn't proving that as Izuku easily dodged the boy's blasts, kids watching him swirl around the blonde, each explosion missing him, and not even a mark on him. Damn it, stop moving nerd. Kitsuki shouts going in for his normal right hook, only to be stopped as Izuku grabbed his hand. His eyes are wide that he made contact with Izuku since he hadn't even raised his arms, not since he started trying to attack Deku, since he has been back for the last 2 weeks. Kitsuki, class is about to start. Please stop trying to cause a fight and sit down. Izuku says, his eyes still as kind as they were when they were kids, only for Kitsuki to remember, moving to pull his fist back fast and jump back a bit out of Izuku's reach. Quickly checking if his explosions were still there, he sighed seeing his hands pop and crackle. Fuck you Deku. I'll make sure you know your place come lunch, he hissed, moving to walk to his seat. The brunette thanking the blonde as he moved to go and sit as well. His hair wasn't up in its normal bun today, so it was a mass of green curls that fell over his face and shoulders. He didn't seem to mind as the hair wasn't a usual problem. The teacher walking in with a serious expression and a few sheets of paper. Now class. Today we are talking about something serious, so pay attention. He states looking down at his pedestal. Everyone was fearful of what the teacher was going to talk about at first, but soon the mood began to change when he spoke again. It's getting close to the end of the year, and I'm sure you all know, it's your 3rd year, so you need to be thinking about what you're going to be doing in the future. He stays moving to take the papers and hold them up, not looking to the class yet. Now I would hand out these future school forms. He quickly turns and tosses the papers to the air with a smile on his face, but I know you all want to go onto the hero track. He says joyously as he looks to the class, all of them activating their quirks happily and showing them off. None of them fit Izuku's tastes, especially the kid who could pull his eyes out. That one was really weird. Now kids, I know you all want to be heroes, but you need to think real for a minute. I'm going to hand these out and I recommend you fill out more than just hero. He says, moving to look over the class sheet before spotting Kitsuki's name and UA applicant next to it, only to see the blonde start to boast. Don't lump me in with these B-list extras, teach. I'm the one who is going to be at the top. He shouts, moving to jump up onto the desk and point to himself with his thumb. I passed the mock tests and aced the midterms. I'm the only one slated for success in this shitty school. He states, his pride making him forget about Izuku for a moment. Oh yeah, you planned on going to UA, right? With Midoriya. The teacher states. Izuku sat with a smile on his lips, and the class glanced back at him, looking to see what he had to say. Well, they didn't let me take the mock tests, but I also got top scores for the midterms, and even tied with Kitsuki. So, I believe I have just enough right to enter as well. He states, most of the kids started cheering for Izuku when they had yelled at Kitsuki for looking down on them. Yeah, you got this, Izuku. One of the girls said, a boy joining in. Yeah. If anyone can get into that school, it has to be you. He shouts, the rest shouting back that they believe in the greenet. Kitsuki was visibly shaking. His eyebrow was twitching like crazy at the sounds of everyone cheering, only to quickly move and launch at Izuku. Deku? He growls, slamming his fist onto the desk, the boy quickly moving to get back still in his chair and holding the book he had on his desk. Yes. He hums, looking up to Kitsuki as he moved to walk closer. You asshole. Trying to one-up me again. He shouts, going to slam his fist into the boy's face yet again, thinking it was going to connect before he saw Izuku's head sway to the side and his hand slide past. A smile on the boy's face as he locked eyes with Kitsuki. Oh, Kakin. Don't worry, I'm not trying to one-up you. I'm just trying to prove you aren't a god. He states. A smug smile on his lips as he moved to lean in close to the blonde, who stared with anger, his eyes having clear blood veins showing as he was held there by Izuku's hand, which he hadn't seen move to grab his shirt. I don't plan on losing either. So, get stronger, and when you can land a hit, I'll consider you. He states, those words, I'll consider you. It was like that throne of pride that Kitsuki had been sat on since he was 4, was just stolen from under him, and the pebble that was Deku, a useless fucker who he could crush if he wanted, was now in his throne, no longer a pebble, but a mountain for Kitsuki to face head on, and he was very much ill-prepared. The teen seethed for a moment, looking at the green hair of Izuku before turning and walking back to his desk, sitting down and just mumbling and growling now and then. Izuku apologizing for the two to the teacher with a bow before moving to take his seat and get back to his work. The day went by smoothly, Izuku dodging and poking Kitsuki, the boy jumping back at every touch that came to him, not giving up however on landing a hit on Izuku. Mainly fighting with his quirk, but nowhere near the level that Izuku was at in terms of control and instinct, and it was just pissing Kitsuki off more and more. The day ended and Izuku was left alone, Kitsuki and his goons heading off to go and do whatever it was they did after class. Kitsuki not even bothering to try and land a hit on the other teen. Izuku was walking home, having stopped to help a child whose balloon had flown up into a tree. Smiling as he handed it to the kid and directed him to his mother, who was waiting for him. He loved helping people and enjoyed seeing their smiles on their faces when he helped. He felt like a real hero. Moving to walk under a bridge, he was unaware of the approaching danger for the moment. A few minutes earlier, halfway across town. AHHH. A woman screamed as the doors to a convenience store shot open, and a large figure ran out towards her. Falling back, she activated her quirk, a hexagonal shield popping up just in time for the villain not to hit her as he started to run down the street, chuckling wetly. Ahahahaha. Just try and catch me, fuckers. He shouts, running through lamps and around people. The skinny man walks out of a small mini-mart, watching the figure race past on the other side of the street. Looking around for a moment as he started to grow, two men talking in front of him. Another villain. One of them says, two small horns poking out of the top of his head almost like nubs, also having gray skin. Yeah, just some petty criminal. Wonder where the heroes are. Another man says, no distinguishing features, perhaps an emitter user. Have no fear, citizens. A loud booming voice says as he walks out from the shadow of the awning that hung over the entrance to the mini-mart. I am here. He shouts, the villain hearing this and turning to see who it was, noticing the intimidating figure of a certain hero. Holy shit. He shouts and starts to book it. Back to Izuku. Izuku walked past the manhole cover under the bridge, only to stop and close his eyes. Approaching danger. Standing there, he glances back as a large sludge figure quickly pops out of the sewers, slipping through the holes in the cover. A medium-sized SK, he was cut off as Izuku would quickly turn around and get into a fighting stance, his arms up in a boxer's pose, while his eyes locked on the figure in front of him. The fighter. Oh well, I won't hurt you too bad. The sludge villain shouts, moving to shoot out a few tendrils at the boy, who easily dodges them, moving closer as he does, his speed insane, as the sludge villain loses sight of him only for his body to break apart in one punch, looking to his side to see the boy there. But he shouts before bursting and flying into the right wall. Splattering over the wall and street. The boy walking over to poke a bit of the sludge with his pencil. Tapping it softly before hearing another figure approaching, their footsteps louder than the sludge villain's, a bigger opponent. He didn't turn to face the manhole cover as he heard the hero state as he jumped out. Finally. I have caught up to yo. He stops, looking to the right to see the villain separated across the wall and floor and a boy standing in front of the mess. Oh well, thank you for the help, city. He is cut off. The boy turned to face the hero, his blood running cold as the boy made eye contact with the hero. Shit. He says under his breath, moving to quickly jump back and get in a fighting stance, knowing those eyes and that aura, it was him. His rival for the past couple of decades. All for one. Yet he looked younger. Did he get an age regression quirk? Getting ready for a fight of his life, All Might stopped however. Instead of seeing his arch-nemesis he saw a boy, tilting his head at the man. All Might sir? Are you alright? He says with worry and confusion in his voice. Was there another villain Izuku hadn't felt coming? Why did the man look like he was facing death's door? What? He looked at the boy before blinking again. That resemblance, maybe it's just a coincidence. Sorry. I hadn't been expecting what could be out here, so I quickly wanted to take a battle stance to be ready for anything. He states, trying to ignore the fact that he thought he saw his old enemy in the boy's eyes. Shaking his head again. He was just seeing things. Moving to take the 2 large cola bottles from his back, he quickly drank them both down, letting out a loud burp before filling them with the villain, placing them in his pockets. Began, thank you for your cooperation, citizen. He says, moving to start heading back to the side he jumped out to in the first place, however stopping as the boy shouted, wait, All Might. I have a question. Can I still be a hero with a strange quirk? He asks, wondering if he really can be a hero with a quirk like this. Looking at the hero as he waited for an answer. A strange quirk? Boy, there are heroes out there who have really weird quirks. So honestly, I do think you can be a hero. Just make sure you keep training and stay in school. He says with a smile and a thumbs up, giving the boy enough time to quickly grab a photo of the man before he jumped off. All Might glancing back as he started to glide after his jump. It's too canny. He has to be related somehow. He looks exactly like the man who killed my teacher, all for one. I should talk to Tsukauchi and get him to look the kid up for me. He thinks, sighing as he flew, unaware how loose the bottles in his pants were as they flew out easily, falling into an alleyway a certain blonde was passing through. Hucking Deku, I'm gonna kick his ass. He hisses, blowing up the soda can in his hand once it was empty. His goons sharing a look before speaking up. You know man, what is the beef you have with Midoriya? It's really weird. Goon, number 1 states. Looking at Bakugo. The other agreeing like before. Yeah man, you and him are so strong, why not just make him your friend? He states, only to need to quickly duck as the can came flying at his head. Me be friends with that fucking asshole Deku? Not in a million years. He growls, moving to slam his foot into a bottle of liquid, unaware what it was. I'd rather die than be friends with that fucking liar. He hisses, the two sharing another look before sighing defeatedly. Why don't we head to the arcade then? Cool off a little. Goon number 1 states, goon number 2 giving a slight smirk. Or we can go to the train station and try to pick up some chicks. He states, the other giving a smile to his friend, only for them to wince in fear at a shout. Idiots. Do you want me to lose my chance into UA? Katsuki growls out, looking at the two as they seem to start cowering in fear, a shadow soon covering Katsuki's body, looking back to see what it was that was blocking his sunlight. I love a meat suit with some fire. The sludge villain shouts as he moves to launch himself onto Katsuki, chuckling happily. The teen letting out a loud shout of anger as he lets out a massive blast. Get off me. He screams, a massive smoke cloud covering the alleyway and Katsuki and the villain launch into the side road, another massive blast getting launched off. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support the Spirytas for writing that awesome fanfic. See you in the next video. Goodbye.